All right.
Okay. All right, so we're all ready. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, the Los Olivos Community Services District Finance Committee meeting of May 9, time 8:34 a.m. And we'll go ahead with the roll call.
President Kennedy,
I'm here.
Director Nelson.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, all right, next item, public comments. If there's anyone, either no one here, anyone online by chance wish to address the
That I'm
board?
seeing.
Okay, hearing no takers, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent.
Yeah, if I could.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Sure. I do want to note for the, the verbal record here that there were no meetings in February, March, or April.
Right.
And even though Director Nelson was not on the subcommittee at the time, he is allowed to approve minutes from that period as long as he's reviewed them.
And there were no minutes, so.
Yeah, there was nothing there.
Yeah. Well, there's January that we're officially approving. You can approve those.
Right. Okay,
All right.
okay.
Move that they be approved as submitted.
I second the motion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right, we are moving on to,
Take public comment, although there's nobody here.
oh, I'm sorry, that's right. Is it any public comment on the consent agenda before we move on?
There isn't, and I realize it's a silly formality, but still.
Okay, that's all right. Don't
On
want
the
to.
record, that's what counts.
All right, item number 5, invoice review and recommendation. You had any comments, Guy, that you wanted to kick us off with, or?
Yeah, nothing special with these. The only thing I would add is, we did have as part of the budget discussion about groundwater monitoring. And the May samplings will take place next Tuesday.
Okay, great. That's good. We'll keep fingers crossed that the
Okay.
results are positive.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, do any public comment on, I'm sorry, Director?
No, I have no
nothing?
questions.
All right, I didn't see anything that was, questionable or needed explanation. So if there any public comment, anybody online yet? No?
Nope.
Nobody joining us in this lovely day. All right, so go ahead and get a motion to, you want to do it, Tom?
Yeah. Let's see.
So you're just gonna make
Just
a
a move. I move that we
Rec-
approve the recommendations of the invoiced items.
If I may, Director Nelson, the group here just makes a recommendation to the full board. You don't approve on this case.
You're just gonna make a motion to recommend.
Okay.
Are you making it?
Well,
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Go for it.
I'm new at what these are, so I'm not quite
I
sure how
know,
to
I
phrase
got
them.
it.
Well, I can say I move that we recommend, make a recommendation to the board that they approve the invoiced items
For payment.
for
Okay.
payment. Okay, yeah, for
Perfect.
payment.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are recommended to the board to pay and approve. All right. Let's see, next item on the agenda is our draft budget.
Okay, so nothing, too crazy about this one. This is now the third month that you've had a chance to look at this. I don't plan on walking through it here today. I think there are two things about the budget for this particular go around. One is I do have you'll see the budget reports here in just a minute. And we do have a bit more money at this point than I originally anticipated when I put together the draft budget. So I'm going to be updating that before next Wednesday's meeting, as well as a couple other minor items that I've noticed in the last few days. So that'll be updated, and Wednesday's meeting of next week is really the key to that whole meeting is to set the hearing, which I'm assuming the board's going to set a hearing for June to do the budget. As a reminder, the hearing is it's a special item within a normal agenda, but it's a legally required action. And of course, as part of setting the hearing, the board's going to do things like direct staff to post all the right notices and that sort of thing. So all of that will be next Wednesday at this item on your agenda here is just one last walk through. If there's any other questions or anything else that needs to be adjusted in your opinion before this goes to the full board.
I had just one item, I know we've talked about this, but you know, given that, you know, we're gonna, you know, hopefully by the June meeting, the board votes on a technical direction. And I know that we have a variety of activities that we're gonna have to get underway in order to move towards a Prop 218 vote. And I know that you've done a really good job over the years of outlining what some of those expected costs for some of those various reports and other activities are gonna be. And so the big question, I mean, I feel like just looking at this, we have a reasonable amount of money to get started. I know it's not gonna cover everything, but do you feel confident that is that a fair assertion?
So it's going to be close, but I think we have sufficient funds.
Okay,
Is my
great.
as long as we don't get pulled down a rabbit hole that isn't anticipated, right? I mean, if you know, if the EIR goes off the rails and ends up costing $1 million, well, no, we don't have enough $1 million. But you know, if it stays within the costs we've described, and you know, I do expect, for instance, that Padre will adjust their costs up a little bit, but not so much that it's going to cause us to bust our budget there. I have already started talking to firms about things like polling, and have an estimate from a real firm, not just, you know, I think it'll be. It's basically what we budgeted for that. No surprise, you know. We did do a little research before just plugging a number in there, right? Timing of that, for instance, is going to be interesting because you have a vote, a national vote, right? And so polling firms during that same period are going to be really focused on doing things. So some of that stuff we might need to do sooner rather than later, particularly making sure some of it's done timely. But by and large, I guess the short answer is done some of the work already, getting started on it. And I think we'll be okay, particularly again, given that we've got a little more money than I thought we would.
All right, that's great. More money is always better.
Yeah.
All right, super. So I don't think this one requires any action, if I'm not mistaken,
I think that's when we come up to the other.
right? Sorry, let me find my.
Yeah, it's one of those things, if the subcommittee wanted to make a recommendation to approve or not approve, you could, but it's not really required.
Okay. All right, well, I'll make a recommendation that we recommend to the board of directors to approve the draft budget.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are so recommended. All right.
I don't know that you took public comment.
I'm sorry, we did not. I'm sorry, before we move on, any public comment on the draft budget? Get nobody here in the lovely courtyard.
Okay, yeah, I'm typing, so I can't see what else is in the courtyard.
Yeah. It's just me and Tom and somebody with a radio, one of the
Somebody
painter guys.
insistently calling me.
Okay, then no public comment. We'll move on to budget reports.
Okay, just a second, let me pull them up. Oops.
You know, I realized this morning, oh my God, my computer's going to be used for the Zoom meeting. I can't look at the packet online.
Now you know why I use 2 laptops,
Yeah.
because you're hitting it right square on the head. Where is my? Hold on, I've got to find my Zoom session to be able to share. Here we go. All right, share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so as I mentioned a minute ago, you can see we're sitting at
Oh,
just
wow.
a smidge over $480,000. And there's 2 reasons for that. Obviously, we got more property tax revenue, but also the $75,000 from the state grant.
Okay.
So when you throw all of that in, you come up to 480, which is, as I said a minute ago, quite a bit more than what we were seeing in the budget. So that's again why I'm going to make sure I adjust that. Cash balances, you know, you just saw that. The trial ledger, that, you know, if you want to go through the details, maybe you already did, as to see what's what. You can find that in there. I did include one extra. Here's the balance sheet. It looks very similar, and then you've got a financial status report. These numbers, you know, for the most part, are coming in where we expected. Some of these expenditures, there's that $75,000 from the state that had not been included yet. So yeah, so things generally look good as far as the budget's concerned. See if I could stop sharing this now. There we go. So I guess I'd just say any questions. I just wanted to share that with you quickly.
I don't have any.
I didn't have any either. It's, you know, it's been pretty consistent. It's nice to see the 75K in there finally.
Yeah.
That was kind of a nice bonus.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, this one we don't need to do oh no, I'm sorry. Let's see if we
Yeah, you should do
public comment on the budget reports. Again, we have nobody joining us here, and it's like still no one online.
All right.
There's a lot going on around here.
Yeah,
this
there
morning.
is the tour going through and all sorts of things.
Painting.
That's what we're going through.
All right, so no action required there. So moving on to the subcommittee member comments. I don't have anything.
I don't have
Tom?
any. I think I'm very pleased at where we are. We could certainly be better, but I'm happy we're still up in a comfortable zone. And like
Yeah.
you said, barring any unforeseen situation, we should be fairly good and be able to move forward. I'm pleased myself.
I'm just pleased we're having a meeting.
I know. Exactly. Wow. This has been a while.
Yes, it has since January. Yeah.
All right. Well, no further comments then. I'll just get a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn at
8:46.
8:46.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
So Julie, do you want to hang out for
Yeah.
just a minute? I'll stop the recording.
Just so you know, I sent out